So hello class. As I mentioned before, I was going to do a video recording. As you can see, the background is my hotel room. So we have everybody else downstairs playing cards. So I decided to come up here and give you a lesson on management history modules. Okay, so as you can see that even during the Egyptian time and the Chinese during the Great Wall, that there was proof that there was managers that exist in building these projects. So if you really think about it, who told each worker what to do? Who ensured there would be enough stones at the site to keep them busy? And of course, the answer is managers. Sometimes, somehow they had to get a plan, organize people, find the materials, and so forth to do that. All right, so in 1776, Adam Smith published what we call The Wealth of Nations, all right? He concluded that divisions of labor increase productivity by increasing each worker's skill, saving time loss and changing tasks and creating what they consider as labor-saving inventions and machineries. All right, and then you also had the Industrial Revolution, and starting in the 18th centuries, this was machine power. It was substituted for human power, and this was what we would call or consider the Industrial Revolution. In other words, it became more economical to manufacture goods in factories than at home. All right, so as you can see here, we have what it's called the 4 major approaches to management. We just talked about the historical background. So the 4 major approaches to management is your classical approach, the behavioral approach, quantitative approach, and your contemporary approach. All right, so let's start off with the classical approach. The classical approach is the first study of management, and it actually emphasized rationality and making organizations and workers as efficient as possible. In the classic approach, you've got the scientific manager. So for example, if you had to pinpoint when modern management theory was born, I would say probably 1911 would be a good choice. And that was when Frederick Wilson Taylor, Principles of Scientific Management was published. All right. And the use of scientific methods defined the one best way for a job to get done. All right, and so you can see here his exhibit of Taylor's scientific management principles. His experiences at Mid-Val led him to define clear guidelines for improving production efficiency, and he also argued that these 4 principles of management would result in prosperity for not only the workers, but for the managers as well. Then you had Frank and Lillian Gilbert, okay? The Gilberts divide a classification scheme to label 17 basic hand motions for their design. In other words, they're saying they experiment with the design and use of proper tools and equipment for optimizing work performance. So there's 17 basic hand motions, such as like the surge, the grasp, the hold. They were called the Thurbligs, okay? In other words, Gilbert spelled backwards with the TH transpose. All right, this scheme actually gave them a more precise way of analyzing a worker's exact hand motions. And many of the guidelines and techniques that the Taylors and the Gilberts divide are still used in organization today. So think about it, if you're talking about robotics, for example, you have robotics can help boost work efficiently. So what it does, it frees workers from repetitive tasks. And not only that, that robotics can complete essential tasks requiring manual dexterity like 25% faster. All right, then you have what it's called the general administrative theory, and that actually deals with approach to manage it that focus on describing what managers do, what constitutes good management practice. Fayol actually wrote during the same time period as Taylor, but his attention was directed at the activities of all managers. And he wrote from his personal experience as the managing director of a large French coal mining firm. All right. His principles of management describe the practice of management as something distinct from like accounting, finance, production, distribution, and other typical business functions. His belief that management was an activity that was common to all businesses, government, the home, and it led him to develop the 14 principles of management. And as you can see, you have in here, you actually have his principles of management, and these are the first 7. I'm not going to go into details. You can see that. And here are the 14 principles of management from Fayol. Then you had Max Weber. Okay, Max Weber, he was actually a German sociologist who studied organizations. All right. He developed a theory of authority, structure, and relations based on idea type of organization he called bureaucracy. Okay, so you're talking about the hierarchy levels of management. His theory actually became the structural design for many of today's large organizations that we use till today. And here's an example or characteristics of Weber's bureaucracy. Okay, so now let's go to the second approach, which is behavioral approach. For the behavioral approach, I'm sorry, I can't talk today. We have what is called organizational behavior, which is the study of the actions of people at work. All right. Here you have in this diagram, you have like a number of individuals in the early 20th century that recognize the importance of people to organization success. 4 stand out as the advocates of organizational behavior approach, and that would be Robert Owen, Hugo Munsterberg, Mary Parker Follett, and Chester Bernard. And their contributions were varied and distinct, yet all believed that people were the most important assets of the organization and that should be managed accordingly. Their ideas actually provided foundation for such management practice as employee selection procedures, motivation programs, and work teams. And if you can see here from this exhibit, it actually summarizes each individual's most important ideas. All right, you have what is called the Hawthorne study. That is actually a series of studies that took place between the 1920s and 1930s that provided new insight into individual and group behaviors. All right. The study concluded that people's behavior and attitudes are actually closely related and that group factors significantly affect individual behavior, and that group standards establish individual worker output, and that money is less a factor in determining output than group standards, their attitudes, and securities. With these conclusions actually led to a new emphasis on human behavior factors in the management of organizations. All right, then our third approach is what we call quantitative approach. And quantitative approach is the use of quantitative techniques to improve decision making. And this is known as management science. It evolved from mathematical and statistical solutions. It was developed for military problems during World War II. And after the war was over, many of these techniques are still used for military problems, which were applied to businesses. You have what it's called TQM, or Total Quality Management. It's a philosophy of management that's driven by continuous improvement and responsiveness to customers' needs and expectations. The term customer will include anyone who interacts with the organization, products, or services, whether it's internally or externally, and it encompasses employees and suppliers, as well as people who purchase the organization goods or services. In this exhibit, you have the characteristics of like quality management, and I'm just going to let you look at it. I'm not going to really go through that. Okay, then you have contemporary approaches. Contemporary approaches, so most of the earlier focus on management concerns inside the organization. Then starting in the 1960s, management researchers began to look at what was happening in the external environment outside the boundaries of the organization. Two contemporary management perspectives, which is systems and contingencies, are part of this approach. System theory is actually a basic theory in a physical science, but has never been applied to organizations' human efforts. So a system is basically a set of interrelated and independent parts arranged in a manner that's going to produce a unified whole. Then we have what it's called a closed system that is not influenced by and do not interact with their environment, whereas in an open system, they are influenced and do interact with their environment. Today, we describe organizations as systems. When we talk about systems, we talk about open systems, where they interact with their environments. Okay, and here you have this example shows a diagram of organization from an open system perspective. All right, and as you can see, an organization will take in inputs, which is the resources from the environment, transform or process these resources into outputs that are distributed into the environment. So the organization is open to and interacts with its environment. All right, and then finally you have what is called the contingency approach. And that is, sometimes a contingency approach is called a situational approach. And it says that organizations are different. They face different situations such as contingencies and require different ways of managing. All right. And Exhibit 8, which is popular contingency variables, is an example of everything. Okay. So I just wanted to give you a history of management for Chapter 1A. Don't forget a couple of things, and then just to let you know, I will be putting together questions. I need for you to watch this video, answer the questions, answer them in a Word document, and upload them before our next class. Remember, our next class won't be until Thursday. When is Thursday? Let's see, September 7th, okay? So make sure you answer them before class on September 7th, then upload them. Meanwhile, your previous homework, which is Chapter 1 questions and quizzes, are going to be due before this video on Tuesday. But since we're not going to have class, what I'll do is I'll extend both of them until 11:59 tonight, which will be Tuesday night. All right, that's September 5th. I hope you guys will enjoy your Labor Day, your long Labor Day weekend, and I will see you in class on Thursday. I know the history of management is really not anything fun to listen to, but it just gives you an idea of how we are going about approaching managerial styles in the workplace today. Okay, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I will see you on Thursday. Take care. I'm trying to stop the video. So, okay, stop recording. Bye.